Hi, I'm Murphy Henry and welcome to the Murphy Method. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about theory, a little bit about chords, and a little bit about using the capo on the banjo. Alright, the first thing we're going to talk about are the names of all the notes. Now this sounds a little scary, but fortunately there are just a limited number of names of notes. For starters, there are only 7 letters that make names of notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. That's 7 letters. The first 7 letters of the alphabet. There are no H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P notes. Just those 7. Now, in between each of those letter names is another note. Okay? Except between E and F and between B and C. Those are the exceptions to the rule. Okay? Between E and F and B and C. And you just have to kind of remember that. Okay, so we got A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Between each of those is another note. In this video, we're going to refer to the notes in between as sharp. So after A will be an A sharp. Okay, after G will be a G sharp. These notes are also called flats. They can be called flats, and we'll be talking about that later also. But right now, we're going to look at the notes on the banjo. Okay? Since we don't have an A string on the banjo, and since the banjo is tuned to a G chord, let's look at all the notes on the 3rd string, or the G string. Now, as I told you, this is a G note. If we put our finger at the 1st fret, we get a G sharp. Okay? The next note would be an A. The next note, A sharp. The next note, B. The next note, C. Remember I said between B and C, there's no sharp. So it's B, and then right to C. Next note, C sharp. D. D sharp. E. Now there is no E sharp, so we go right to F. F sharp. And G. Okay, after G, we just start repeating the notes that we just went over. So it would be, quickly, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, and I think that's about as far as we'll try to go. Okay, those are the names of all the notes on the G string. Now, the way we can put this information to work in playing the banjo is we can use this information to find our chord positions. Okay? Now, we'll start with the simplest chord we can make on the banjo, which is, as I told you, G chord, strummed open. Alright, if we want to move that chord around, we can make a position called the bar chord. If you looked at it on paper, it's spelled B-A-R-R-E, pronounced bar. And all that means is just taking any finger, I usually use my index finger, and laying it across all of the strings, okay? That's what a bar chord looks like. And you can see it's movable because we're covering all the strings, okay? Now, keeping in mind the names of the notes and how they moved up the neck, we can do the same thing with the chords, with any chord position. So, if this is G chord, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, and G. So you see the chords move up the neck the same way that the notes do, and this becomes an important piece of information. Alright, now we want to talk briefly about which chords go together. If you've played the banjo or you've played the guitar, mandolin, any at all, you've probably come to an understanding somehow in your head that when you're playing in the key of G, you mostly use the chords G, C, and D. That's what I mean by chords that go together. Okay, now this is a very, very simple rule, and then we'll talk about where this rule comes from. In order to know which chords go together in many of the keys that we use in bluegrass, all you have to do is take the first 5 notes. If you start with the name of the chord you're playing in, or the key, like G, okay, G, A, B, C, and D. Just count up using the whole letter names. Okay, you'll notice G is 1, A, B. C is 4, and D is 5. 1, 4, and 5. You may have heard that expression before. That's where it comes from. The first note of the scale, the fourth note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. This is very, very simple. It's probably oversimplified, but it is useful and it does work. So, if you're playing in the key of C, okay, if you don't know what the chords are that you would normally use, just use your fingers and count up C, D, E, F, the 4 chord, and G, the 5 chord. So we say those chords go together. C, F, and G. 1, 4, and 5. That also works for the key of D. Sometimes we play in the key of D in bluegrass. So, our rule of 5, our rule of the hand, D, E, F, G, and A. D, G, and A. Okay? This also works for the key of A. Okay? A, B, C, D, and E. A, D, and E. And there's one more key that it works for, the key of E, which would be E, F, G, A, and B. E, A, and B.